Right now I'm at 7-Eleven fueling up. Gas price is $3.09. Welcome, it is Friday, July 5th, 2024. Today I will be headed over to the Rosenberg Railroad Museum. They have a Patriotic Train on display. Today's the last day for it, so I wanted to swing by and check it out. So join me if you will. Will you? But first I need some caffeine. I always like looking at this live video of the trains that come by. Trunk from the Orchard Depot. Passenger trains were allowed a maximum speed of 90 miles per hour. Freight trains were held to 60 miles per hour. Looks like he's staying caffeinated. And here comes the Patriotic Train. Fun fact, the tour guide told us that the city of Rosenberg is named after a man with the last name Rosenberg, but he was not from Rosenberg, nor had he ever visited Rosenberg. True story.
Where the trains sleep at night. They live well, it's air conditioned, heated, and there's a, if you will, a drawbridge against that goes down and connects with a trap door. So they run the trains on and off the railroad. Nowadays we run them with batteries inside a car, but the power can come through the track. But it's probably more reliable to have the battery on the car. Modern produce, even though it was built in 1972, better than 50 years ago. It's made for the Missouri Pacific Mold-Pack Railroad, and it really did serve in this area. Now, not on these tracks, because Missouri Pacific had their own tracks back when they were an independent railroad.
Is that on there? Oh, no. Yeah, sure.
Look here, look.
Yeah, this is the standard equipment to cook it. Yeah. So you did that ice test.
Oh, that's a new one?
Yeah, it is. It just connects to the last part. There's no locomotive pushing it.
How did these ice boxes work?
They were real. They were here. But when this was in service, it was always operating by maybe one or two people. And their job was to protect that crossing using, believe it or not, a electromechanical computing device from 1900. And it worked. It's like a computer worked for 100 years. And it used batteries called Edison batteries. You may have seen them in science project. They're made out of glass. Very dangerous, but very effective. But this thing served for 100 years. Amazing. Now, when they retired it, they took it apart. The top part you see is original. That they brought up here on a truck, and they reassembled the bottom part and set that on top of it. So what you see actually is the top part is 100%, if you will, original. Not completely, because half of this thing was built in the 1950s. And the reason for that, ladies, is that during World War II, in the 1940s and 50s, women began to get into the workforce. The original building had no facilities. Women began to work and said, no, guys will go behind a tree or whatever, we're not doing that. So they put this in, they put a women's room upstairs and a men's room downstairs. That was one of the reasons, but they needed a little more storage space. The way it functioned, this side bottom is where the computing device was, and the batteries were behind it. That's where they stored the batteries. Upstairs is the interface. The user interface and the computing device used Edison battery. So I guess one of the ladies who was helpful in getting this up here, this was her personal protection device. Yeah. You don't want to mess with her at night because she'll wet your head.
This reminds me of being in elementary school. I just need a number 2 pencil.
Now, what you see here is when it was upgraded in about 1925. That's when they clad it with metal, etc. It originally was just a passenger coach. That little railroad that owned it got bought by this one called the Grand Trunk Railroad. Okay? The Grand Trunk did not need passenger cars, they needed business cars. So they reconfigured it as a business car. Now, what they were doing, this was in the 1880s, there were no roads, essentially, no trucks, no cars yet. The only transportation system that was reliable was the train. So they would go from town to town to town as they moved west, selling the railroad. They would tell someone, okay, look, we'll put your railroad siding in here for free. And then they made their money on the freight. So they go from town to town to town. So that's why it was really used as an entertainment device and a sales tool for many years, until finally there were roads up there. The way it had a couple of executive salespeople on it, and one other person called a steward, okay? Now people like businesses, railroads use them, very wealthy families would. This would be like a business jet, not a little business jet, like a 757 business jet, it'd be like a big one. That was always the last car on a train, never had any car behind it. Essentially, the crew, the staff would be forward in another car and then come back, do the business, and go back up there. So when this was in service by the railroad, it had 3 people in it, the 2 salespeople and a steward. Now, when roads got to be everywhere, they didn't need it for doing this. So what they did is they put it into just plain business service for their executives. Like, you may have seen politicians or photographs of them. They would take these things town to town to town, go a whistle stop, and they would give their political speech and go to the next little town. So if you've ever seen a show called Wild Wild West, you'll recognize the interior. Yeah, it looks just like it.
I think the vacuum cleaner should
With your eyes, not your hands.
This piece of shit marked the Southern Pacific Railroad used those all over their system as telephone booths before we had the reliable radio. We put a metal door on it.
What did they use that building for?
Storage.
Storage.
Our our tale is that the railroad police used it as a jail,
Oh, really?
so we call it the jail.
Great Scott. This is so awesome. I love how very detailed everything is. It looks realistic.
But if you look at scenes, the backside over there is like a redwood forest.
Yeah.
And then this is Colorado and Florida, and then these are two scenes from movies that he would put in.
Wow. How long did it take him to put all this together?
About 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
He got help from some of his buddies from the club. They would build a building for him and he would put it in.
What do they use to make the water?
It's an acrylic resin. It's a pour, and then it's really hard, but what it does, it really looks exactly like it went under the water.
Yeah. It's good. I'm old and fragile. Yeah, me too. And I did end up purchasing a couple of pins to add to my pin board. So I already have one pin from the Railroad Museum that I got the first time I went. And then that was from Jurassic World when I went to that in Katy in Comic Palooza. So I decided to get a couple of more pins from the Railroad Museum. To add to my collection. Well, that's going to do it for my video today. As always, thank you for watching and stay caffeinated.